Hello, and welcome to this week's Marketing, Branding and Getting the Sales show. And you'll notice there's a couple of different faces here today. Now, if you've been here watching the last few weeks, you will have seen Helen and Andy at different times. Now they're here together. Stephen has been whisked away by his loved one to celebrate his birthday. So happy birthday again, Stephen. And Andy has kindly stepped in very last minute for Jess, who unfortunately isn't very well today. So thank you, both of you, for coming along today. Really appreciate it. Wouldn't like to be here just kind of standing talking to myself, you know. So today we're talking about how to be more focused in your business. So before we dive into that topic, I'd love to just go to Helen and Andy and give them a chance to introduce themselves so that you can understand where they're coming from when it comes to this topic. So Helen, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Helen T-Bay. I'm the sales lady, and my main focus is helping small business owners to maximise their sales activities, inspire sales teams, and whatever sales issues they're having, we fix them and get the results and that sales predictability that they're looking for from a business point of view. And so for me, when I'm looking at this particular task, how to be more focused in your business, it springs to mind the sales and the front end activity as well as the planning for that as well.
Great, good stuff. Andy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Gina. Hi everyone. My name is Andy Pink. My company is called Clixels. I'm the founder and creative director. We do digital ecosystems, so we focus on a business's entire digital ecosystem. So that could be all the different digital touch points that are keeping that business running and generating sales. That could be a website, that could be a CRM system, that could be full IT support, that could be every single digital touch point. We cover it, and we've recently started moving into XR, VR, and AI, which is really exciting as well.
Okay, I know what AI and VR are and AR. What's XI?
XR.
XR.
Yeah. You'd have to ask my business partner. I look after the creative side, making things look pretty. But yeah, essentially we're creating
experience type stuff.
Yeah, so we're creating immersive experiences. So essentially working with a property developer at the moment. The idea is that if you buy, say, a house off plan and you've planned everything, how it's going to be decorated inside and what furniture's going in there in the kitchen, you'll be able to go into a different room, put your XR goggles on and walk around your new property before even purchasing it. So yeah, it's really exciting stuff.
Gotcha.
So
I don't understand how that's different from VR, but I'll take your word from it.
That sounds excellent. Really good as well, especially if you can't always get there. I guess it makes it more efficient as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it means that you can view things that don't exist yet, which is quite scary, but quite exciting at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, thank you for that interesting introduction. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Una Doyle. I'm a business strategist and coach, and I can help any business to unlock 50K or more in only 50 minutes. If you want to know how, ask for my free 5-step video, either in the comments or in a message. So let's get talking about how to be more focused in your business. So I've got a question for you, Andy. You're a creative person. Has that ever been an issue for you?
Oh, massively. I get distracted so easily, especially, since the whole work from home thing started. You've got kind of your computer games next to you. I'm an avid musician, so I've got my guitar sat in the corner. So kind of having it stare at me all day while I'm trying to focus on work is really tough. But I guess you've just got to stay focused on the goal, focused on why you're doing what you're doing, and that kind of gets me going. My business partner's the same. He's very fidgety. And he has basically printed out pictures of all the different things he wants. So the car that he wants to buy and the size of house that he wants. And he's got them above his computer screen on his desk. I think it works for different ways for different people. But yeah, just remembering, I guess, why I left the 9-5 and started working for myself. Started the 12-12.
Well, it's interesting actually. I'm just in the process of getting some up-to-date business cards printed. I'm speaking at an exhibition next week, and I was like, all my marketing materials are totally out of date from before lockdown, so I'm just getting some new stuff done. And I was researching some interesting facts to put on the back, and one of the things was about how many hours the average business owner works. I think it was something like 60-something% of them work more than 40 hours a week, and there was 19% work more than 60 hours a week.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to convince yourself, isn't it, when you're in full-time employment, that you're going to be getting a much easier life going self-employed. It's actually double the work.
Well, if you put the right things in place, though, there's I'm not saying that things can be like easy a piece of cake. Like entrepreneurship definitely has got its challenges.
Sure.
But I think, I think often we can work smarter, and I think focus has a big part to play in that, in terms of people focusing on the right things in their business. So and I know in creative services there definitely is a time when you've got a certain amount of work come in, and that so you say that's your capacity, and then so work comes up, more work comes in, more work comes in, more work comes in, but we can't quite afford another team member yet. Push it. Okay, now we have to get another team member, and then the capacity increases. So that definitely happens with done for you services. Okay, where there's the main way to leverage your time is through other people, but there is certainly, from the running a business point of view, there's a lot of things that we can do to help cut that time down, and I think focus is a big part of that. What about you, Helen? Is this something that you've experienced challenges with yourself?
Yeah, massively. For me, I'm quite a driven person, and so I want to go out and do a lot of the masculine energy, if you will, the doing. And for me, I don't always put enough focus on planning, so it's getting that balance right. But for me, I split my day into two things. The first chunk is visibility. So what am I doing to get visible? What am I doing to get that impact creation visible? And then the second part is the non-visibility tasks.
Right. Okay, and that's a good way of doing things. By the way, if you're watching live, put #live into the comments. If you're watching on the replay, put #replay. I want to know what's your experiences as well, and what questions do you have on this topic? Pop them in the comments, and we will answer them live if you do it right here and now. And we'll come back if you tag us, respond, and we'll be able to help you out. I think focus is something that most people have had issues with. I know certainly I used to do a lot as well. I think, for most of us that are creative, and a lot of entrepreneurs are very creatively minded, even if they're not, kind of artistically creative, we tend to be those big picture thinkers. We love things that are new, which is why we often get so distracted by shiny new objects. I know there's already several comments on this where people have been saying, oh yeah, that's me. But, whether it's tech or, new kind of learnings and, all sorts of different things. And yes, it can be hobbies and stuff like that. I have to say, actually, I'm very impressed with myself, because the other half of my office is my sewing studio for me doing my dressmaking. And I don't ever kind of go, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to wander over here and make something. Which I did wonder, when I started doing it, if that would be the case. But I think there is definitely an aspect to environment. So my immediate environment is all work, so, files and things behind me, computer, keyboard, just trying to keep things organized as much as possible. And I think, when it comes to focusing, that one of the best things that we can do is think about, well, what's the environment that I need for the type of focus? So for instance, if you want to be creative, then it's good to have stimulus. It's good to have textures and colors and movement. I think this is one of the reasons why quite often when people want to write, they go and do it in cafes, because they're not interrupted by people coming and tapping them on the shoulder, or kids at the leg going, mummy, daddy, whatever. But there's things happening around them, and that stimulus can be very good for creativity. Now, stimulus doesn't have to be messy, though. So there definitely is this I think this idea of the creative artist who's just like in this complete chaotic environment. And so we can be organized and structured and creative if we do it in the right way. So then look at the environment you might need. If you say you're doing sales calls, quite often for me, I will make myself really comfortable. I might go to a different room, sit down, on the sofa, have a list of calls to make, and do things like that as well. So that also can be another way of being focused on the task at hand, but in the right kind of energy as well. So I think that's something to think about. But focus has been a big issue for me in the past. I think there's a few things that have really helped with it. But before I dive into those, I'm just curious as to, what tips would you give to help people to be more focused in their business? So Helen, have you got something you'd like to share?
Yeah, for me, I went through a phase where I just used to put stuff in my diary, like, for example, lead magnet. I was working on my first lead magnet. So it would go in as a chunk of 2 hours lead magnet. Yeah. And it doesn't feel very good when you show up to yourself and then you fail on your commitment. So you don't quite go ahead with those 2 hours for the lead magnet. But why would you? Because you've not really been specific with what you're doing. So is it the creative side? What energy are you coming up? How are you showing up? Because as business owner in a micro business, you're wearing all the different hats. You're marketing, you're also market research, you're then the salesperson, you're a bit of everything. So I really specific. So for an hour, we're going to look at the title and the content. For the second hour, we're going to look at X, Y, and Z, so that we're putting very specific things in the diary for specific times. And that helps me stay focused instead of just a generic, we're just going to work on a lead magnet, because it's like hosting a meeting that just says meeting for all, with no agenda in. And so that helps keep the focus. And also looking at, like you said, the environment and the energies. What am I going to need? Where am I operating best for that type of task?
Yeah.
Where do I show up? So, for example, for sales calls, for me, I prefer to have a little bit going on around me. There's nobody listening here, but I come from that environment that I'm better with a bit of background noise. So I sometimes hot desk, and I'll pay for hot desking in the local area for a day a week to do my outbound activities, because I know that energy works better for me. Also not mixing those energies. We're creative, we've got that hat on, then we're taking it off, then we're doing something else, we're putting a thinking and a planning analytical hat on. So I think the best practice is to be specific, allocate the right amount of time that you think you're going to need, and then make sure you kind of batch your energies together so that you're not constantly swapping and changing with what you and your environment needs. And I'd say that gives the best results, really.
Absolutely. And that's kind of echoing that. That's one of the things that I teach my clients to do, where we will look at what has them in flow and out of flow. So that time when you feel like you can achieve anything, even though you might be facing obstacles, when you lose all sense of time, when you're just on it, very productive and having fun and not stressed. Okay, you can't be in flow and stressed in the same moment. So, so we have a personality tool that helps identify the, different profiles for that, and the different types of strategies that suit them, and the different tasks and activities. And so we actually create what I call a weekly flow framework to make sure that they're working in all the different areas of their business that they need to be doing. But having it structured in such a way that they're not doing that context shifting. So context shifting, if you've not heard of that, that's when what you were saying. I talk about it as being, if you imagine steam and going from steam to ice and then back to steam again, and it takes time. And in fact, researchers have shown it can take up to 20 minutes once somebody switches context, or maybe even has just been interrupted, for them to be able to get back into flow again, to really be focused again. So the more that we can reduce that, and by having not just time blocking, but time blocking by energy, by fuel, then that really reduces the quantity of context shifts that we need to make. And thereby, like, if you think every time you're context shifting and you've lost 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes of productivity, okay, and add them up over the week, like, it literally can add up to hours of time when you're not really being that productive. So yeah, absolutely. Having that kind of structure in place is really powerful. And I call it a weekly flow framework because it isn't a prison. You got to be looking a week ahead and going, actually, I need to spend a bit more time on this and a bit less time on that. And there's that one meeting that I wasn't able to kind of get into the space I would normally want it to be. So I need to juggle things around a little bit. But just having that in place, it's so much easier to have something in place and jiggle it around a little bit than not have anything in place and then end up where everything else, you're responding to everyone else's demands on your time instead of you putting in place, well, this is what I'm choosing to do. And I think there's a big, big mindset element to focus, because you have to be able to say no. It's not just a self-discipline thing. It's actually a boundary thing. It's about being able to prioritize what is really, be able to, number one, identify your priorities, and number two, be able to put those boundaries and structures in place, like your calendar or like what you say yes and no to, and really sticking by those. And that means you've got to have the mindset of valuing yourself and being not being a people pleaser, which was something that I was massively in the past. And I think sometimes people think being a people pleaser is a good thing. And I want to make the distinction between like good customer service and being a people pleaser and just being a nice, you can be a nice person without being a people pleaser. Yeah. So I think there's a lot there that kind of goes on in the mindset around putting these kinds of structures in place. Yeah. So let me come to Andy. What have you found has worked for you?
Kind of two things that you got me thinking about there. So firstly, you mentioned environment. I think environment's a huge thing. Again, I kind of come back to the work from home thing. I think most of us work from home now anyway. And actually having a set environment for work is really important for focus. I think I make sure that I go to the gym first thing in the morning, then I come back and I sit at my desk in my office, and that is my place to work. I think if I was sat on the laptop in the living room with the TV on, I'd be less focused. I make sure that when I have lunch, I'll go into, the living room, sit at the dining table away from my desk, and make sure that I'm separating, food times, meal times, leisure times away from work. So you're not eating at your desk while you're working and that sort of thing, because that really affects it, I think. I don't know if you agree on that.
I do.
So I think that's one thing. And I think it's a real psychological thing on that environment, because it's not just about, a lot of people think, I need to get an office. It's like, I think for me, I just need to have a space that is for work. Mm-hmm. And then I'm trying to remember what my other point was around what you were saying, Una. And come back to me. That's okay.
That's all right. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and I think that's it. There are some people who they really will work better outside of the home. Like for me, so I have my office space, it supports me in what I need and it works really well for me. I love working from home, and there may well be a point where my team gets to the size that actually is like, do you know what, we kind of do need to be together. So maybe we will need to do that, or have some things, some meeting times when we're all together. Maybe that's once a year, maybe it's once a quarter or once a month or something, who knows. But I personally, I love the fact that I can roll out of bed, go and do my morning stuff, my exercise like you, do journaling and meditation and things like that. And then I come into the office and I shut the door, and like the rest of the house and everything, and actually even my sewing studio is like, it's over there. This space is what I have. And then I walk away from that.
Yes.
So I do think I think it's hard to, if people don't have a space that kind of really works for them, then yes, I think that can be challenging, really. So Samreen, thank you for your comment. Yeah, absolutely, I would agree. Environment is a prime point. So we have to, create that for ourselves, but also be mindful of the fact that despite the trend towards home working, for some people, it isn't going to work.
No.
They need to have, I am leaving the house and going to a different environment, maybe because there's other people there, or maybe because there isn't other people there, like family and children or something. It can be different for each. So I think we have to acknowledge, like, you know, it's horses for courses. What works for one is not necessarily what works for others. And, you know, that's a bit of a challenge for bigger businesses that have got, you know, multiple teams particularly. And it's something that a lot of them are having to work through, where they have hybrid teams with some people choosing to work from home, or maybe they now have reduced office space, you know, because of home working. So I think there's a lot of things there, and those things can definitely affect focus. I think particularly where people have had, you know, children at home, either because they're too young for school, or because schools were closed, or they were sent home because of COVID-related things. So yeah, I have seen that in some team members and some clients where, you know, it cannot help but affect them if they're not able to have the same kind of focus. I want to share a resource actually that I have found to be amazing. Absolutely amazing. I recommend this to all my clients and most people I speak to in a business context, actually. And it's called Focusmate. So the website is focusmate.com. And it's, oh gosh, this has actually, I'm sure this has actually helped me to become more focused. So what it is it's a video co-working platform, where just like, you know, the three of us are on camera here together, you're paired with one other person, right? For either, they've now introduced 25-minute sessions. So they have 50-minute sessions and 25-minute sessions. And so the platform pairs you with another person. And so at the beginning of the session, you just a quick introduction, you know, hey, I'm Una, how are you doing? Oh, great. Okay, what are you focusing on in this session? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. I'm going to do, I'm writing some copy for some new banners I'm just doing, right? So that's what I was doing last week. And so you do the work, and then at the end you check in to see how did you get on. Now, it's such a simple thing. Yes, and there's a small percentage of people I've recommended it to that have tried it and it didn't work for them, but the vast majority absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And this is just so classic for this. Thank you for joining us, Paul. So late because the day ran away with him. That's what we were talking about in this post. So Focusmate, okay. So I've done over 2,000 sessions, okay, of Focusmate. And I just have found that it's worked incredibly well for me. There's just something about having another person there. It's kind of in the moment accountability. I'm going to talk about accountability a bit more. But it's an in the moment accountability that, number one, makes you show up. So you know the way, Helen, you were talking about earlier about, you know, you block a time in your calendar to do something, but sometimes people still won't do that, right? I'm like this with walks, okay? If I kind of go, okay, I'll go for a walk in the morning, and then I get up and it's absolutely peeing it down, and I live in the northwest of the UK, and where I live is very, very wet, right? So it rains a lot. Now, the interesting thing is, if I've arranged to meet a friend for a walk, I will go. It doesn't matter what the weather, I will be there. But if it's just me, I kind of go, maybe I'll do a dance workout instead, or I'll get on my rebounder. And then I will still usually do some kind of exercise, but maybe I'm just not getting the fresh air, or, you know, I know walking helps me think and all of those kinds of things. So there's just something about, you know, when you've made a commitment to another person, and actually it turns out, even if you don't know who that person is, it can still make a big difference.
Definitely.
So yeah. So I would definitely, I'm just going to pop it into the chat.
Una, do you go off and do it and then come back again, or do you stay online and do it, and so they're kind of just there?
Staying online, yeah. Now, so there are some people, and Focusmate have a Facebook group, so, you know, people, you can go in there and, you know, ask questions and things like that, and we'll often get people kind of going, oh, can I do exercise or piano practice or, you know, whatever. And actually, you know, it's always good. It's good etiquette. It's kind of like Focusmate etiquette of, of asking the other person, is something okay? So now I have done sessions. There was one point where I kept being paired with this woman in my kind of my late morning, early afternoon, but for her in America, it was like first thing for her. And so she would get up and she would do, there's a few of them actually. So like kind of doing journaling, Bible study, exercise, etc. As long as I can see the person and I know they can see me, I'm happy. One thing I don't like is sometimes, particularly students seem to do this a lot actually, because you have students, business people, people who are employees. Yeah, there's a whole wide range of people you can be paired with. That they will share their screen, but then I can't see their face. I want to see the person.
Yeah.
So it's that personal connection. And I actually have a little Chrome tool that I click to have the camera on top. So I see the other person regardless of what window I'm working in. And I find that really helpful. The other thing I find really helpful is to, if I've just got one task that's going to take the time, that's fine. But often I'm doing admin-y kind of marketing stuff when I'm on Focusmate sessions. So I'll often write the task, do the task, write the task, do the task. And then if my mind wanders or I get interrupted or something, then I can go back. What am I doing? Oh yeah, such and such. And then I can go back to it. So there's just little things like that kind of help you make it work. But yeah, I mean, I've had people doing cleaning, decluttering, exercising, cooking, yeah. So
it's crazy.
yeah, why not go for it?
I think it's something interesting you said then, Una, was that, you're almost less likely to let someone else down than let yourself down. And that's something, when you say that out loud, it's kind of scary, isn't it? You should be prioritizing not letting yourself down than letting others down.
Absolutely. And that has been a really big lesson for me. But the interesting thing is, so there's a tool that I do with my clients to help them to understand how they meet others' expectations and how they meet their own expectations. And funnily enough, most of my clients are great at meeting other people's expectations, but not so much their own, like me. Yeah. And so this is one of the reasons why coaching and accountability is so important for them. Now, because of the mindset work that I've done on valuing myself, like, so years ago, if it was raining and I decided not to go for a walk, then I might just waste that time or start work early or whatever. But now I would do an alternative exercise because I value myself enough to do that, right? So, and there are times when I will put on my wet gear and go for the walk, but I just, there's just something extra for me. And so here's the thing is that when you know who you are, and so even though being focused doesn't come naturally to me, and I have a tendency to meet other people's expectations more than my own, I have learned to minimize the impact of those with my mindset work and by putting the right structures in place.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so that's allowed me to become more focused. So one of the ways I'm more focused is I don't have a whole load of net going on in my head. You know what I mean, right? When you've got the kind of, you're not good enough, or who do you think you are, or oh my God, you'll never do that, or what are they going to think? Will they like it? Are they going to reject my work and therefore me by extension? It's like no. So I don't have any of that stuff going on in my head, and my God, that has helped my focus tremendously, absolutely tremendously. Because my head is pretty empty.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just a task. I mean, if you write the task down, send email, whatever it is, reach out to new client, whatever the task is, that's a one-liner thing. That's a few words on a piece of paper. But the actual mental energy that goes into thinking about what that could be, what they're going to say, all these imaginary things that are going to happen, that mental noise is like 10, 20, 50 times worse than the actual task itself, isn't it? And so when you're carrying all that around times by however many tasks you've got, whether they're sales related, visibility tasks, or just general tasks, that's a lot of energy that you have to do something with. So when you talk about being focused, that's why I really have found for me being very specific about it. So introduction email, the aim of the email is to whatever, send your brochure, ask who the right person is, get that person's commitment for a meeting, whatever it is. Let's get that aim really clear, and then what you're doing. It's not just sending a email. We're being very clear and structured and focused in our tasks. So I find that helps me. But I was exactly like you, and I had a lot of thinking on a lot of tasks. That was worse than the task itself.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And it's amazing how much of this is subconscious. So, if someone's procrastinating over something, I'd love to know, put in the comments, what is it that you tend to procrastinate over the most, right? Because I guarantee you that there's probably one of three things happening. So one is, like Helen said, you've not broken it down to a small enough component that it's crystal clear what you need to do next. Yeah. But the two bigger things that I often find are, one, mindset, where people are self-sabotaging. There's some kind of pattern running that they're maybe not even aware of. Now, sometimes you have people, like the kind of, oh, yes, I'm on a diet, as the hand reaches into a biscuit tin, it's like, you can have that. And the person's going, oh, no, I'm going to eat it anyway. So you can have that kind of conscious thing where the behavior is happening, and then you're kind of going, oh, why did I do that? And you beat yourself up. But actually, more often, it's subconscious. And I think that's what I love with the people I work with for my clients, is that we're working on those subconscious patterns as well. And you don't even have to know what they are. And we can help shift those things. And that has been huge for me, to be able to get rid of that self-sabotage, to be able to prioritize myself and my goals, which is not selfish, by the way. I think the big issue for a lot of people, particularly women, who are, who are trained and conditioned from an early age to serve everybody else apart from themselves. But yeah, it's that mindset thing has a big part to play. I think there's a big kind of macro mindset issue of what you're focusing on, and allowing yourself to be happy, to be successful, to be focused. And then there's the micro that can get in the way in the moment as well. But what you were saying, Helen, about the lack of planning and how that can be a big issue. That was a huge issue for me too. Plan. I don't need to plan. I've got loads of ideas. If this one doesn't work, no problem. I've got 10 more where that came from. And and that's actually so damaging, because people don't know what you stand for. There's a real tendency then to not see things through, because the new idea is more exciting, and this one isn't quite working, I'll do this instead. But keep doing that, and watch what the impact is on your business. It's not good. So having the focus to plan then allows you, if you're focused and you're planning, it's so much easier to be focused on a day-to-day basis as well.
Yeah. I think in the background as well, it's, you talk about thinking about yourself. I found it extremely important to reward yourself, even if it's small rewards, big rewards, whatever it is, whether it's a big reward like booking a holiday, or even a small reward. Sometimes I try and say to myself, I'm going to watch at least an hour of TV with my partner tonight when she comes home from work. And a lot of people don't give themselves those rewards. They work and work and work until they go to sleep, and then wake up and work and work and work again. So that work-life balance and rewarding yourself, I think, has been massive for focus, because I think when you lose that life balance, so you lose your weekends, you lose your evenings, you lose your mornings, everything becomes work, then you kind of forget why you're doing it. Yes.
So true.
Yeah, very relatable. Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I found.
Yeah, I love that point. And do you know what? It's really interesting. I have found, I think, because for those of us who are more creatively minded, we also tend to be very future focused. So it's so easy. I often have to remind clients, so wait, hang on, before you jump into the next thing, well done.
Yeah.
You know, that's a great job. That's a brilliant achievement. Just pause and revel in that.
And celebrate. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so easy to forget to celebrate because, you know, just move on to the next thing. So yeah, I could totally resonate with that. I think there's something else that actually I want to share around what you've just said, Andy. So thank you for that prompt. You know, you were just talking about the working and the working and the working and the not resting.
Yeah.
The way our brains work is that actually a lot of the work in our brains happens when we're not doing the thing. So, you know, that whole creative process that, you know, there's kind of some kind of idea, and then, you know, there's some working kind of around that, but then there's a whole kind of black box part where stuff happens that we don't see. And then out of the end of that comes, you know, comes the result, comes the great idea, comes the project, you know, whatever it might be. But when people work and work and work and work and don't have downtime, they're actually short-circuiting that process. Yeah. So it makes it harder to be more focused for a start, but they're also just going to not come up with as good ideas. They're not going to spot things that they may have spotted otherwise, not to mention how productivity just takes a dive. Yeah, you know, and actually I had a client recently who, you know, we started working together and they were working really late into the evenings, like we're talking 11, 12 o'clock at night. And so I talked to them about the value of sleep before midnight. And, you know, we were talking about the impact it was having on their family life. And so what they've done is they've made a switch, because I also pointed out, look, you spend 3 hours working in the evening. I guarantee you, if you were to do that first thing in the morning, maybe it's only going to take you 60, 90 minutes. Yeah. Because your brain will be working better. And so they've actually done that. They started getting up early. And this is a temporary thing, right? I don't intend for them to be working like this in months to come, but it's just for now, while they're switching some certain things over and kind of getting some things implemented and that. And so they now go home on time. They eat dinner with their family. They're able to play with their children. And in the mornings, they get up early and they've had a good night's sleep because they've gone to bed at a decent time. And they're spending a bit of time in the mornings, and they're actually, you know, doing it in a way where, you know, they're still getting to, you know, bring kids to school on certain days and things like that. And so their productivity has really increased, yet they're working less hours. You know, and that's the thing. So you're totally right, Andy. It's when it comes to, you know, we want to make sure, if you want to increase your focus, I would say work less and work smarter. In fact, I could probably sum this whole thing up by work smarter.
Yeah, I think another big thing, like as a business owner, I'm sure we've all had it. Do you all remember that first moment, that first time you said to yourself, I'm not going to take my laptop with me, whether that was for a holiday or for just a weekend break? And it's so scary. But you find that you just crash that weekend and that week, and do you know what I mean? Your energy levels, it's as if your body just needed it. That laptop needed to be left at home. I guess that's kind of another point to have there.
Absolutely. I mean, you want to be in the position where, like, if you work every evening and you work lots of weekends and that, then where's the space for the emergency? Like, there's no fallback, is there? And the chances are, if you're working like that, you're probably creating a lot of emergency situations. There's probably a lot of firefighting going on. Whereas you want to be structuring things in such a way that actually I do work some weekend. I do work some evenings because some events are on in the evenings. But when that happens, I quite often will have a late morning that I might not start till 11 o'clock. In fact, some mornings I don't start till 10 anyway. So there's, you know, if we think about, well, what happens before you go on holiday and you have to get X number of results sorted before you leave, like how focused are we then? Like if we could all be that focused all the time, wouldn't it be amazing? And so there is actually something about putting constraints, you know, such as, oh, I've booked 2 Focusmates to get to work on this project and to do. Right. boom, I'm not doing anything else. I'm not going to check my messages. I'm going to turn my phone off or put do not disturb on or whatever it might be. And so, so you can do that. Put the parameters on by booking other things in, make social arrangements, book classes, spend, arrange to spend time with friends, family, etc. And if you do that, then you're kind of like, oh, I have to get this done in this time because, if I don't, then I have this other commitment that I have to go to.
Yeah.
that you choose, that you want to go to, right? I wouldn't say have to, that you get to. And so it's really interesting how that happens. And maybe part of that is also about perfectionism, because it's well, actually, this was already good enough 20 minutes ago, yet you're still working on it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So that again is going to, really, really make a difference. Okay. So I think so we've talked about planning, and one of the things I want to say about planning actually is to make sure that what you plan ends up in your calendar. So like I do 90-day planning with my clients, and when we're doing that, I'm making sure that they're not over planning, because it is so easy to do that. Because like loads of ideas, lots of exciting things to do. And actually, I got to tell you the story. I did some business planning. It was actually with another coach. So they weren't an ongoing client, but we did this business planning thing. And in this, they had to make a choice between two projects. So they were doing all this other stuff, but they couldn't, in the 90 days, achieve both projects. So they needed to make a choice. Now, one of them was going to net them 50K in revenue. The other was going to net them 5K in revenue, but take more time.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So obviously they went for the one that was going to bring them 50K.
50K, yeah.
And so about 5 months later, they said, "Oh, Una, can we do this again?" But like, okay, yeah, sure. So first thing I say is, okay, well, before we do anything, let's review what happened. And they went, "Oh, guess what? They did both projects." And when I say they did both projects, they started both projects. They spent almost every weekend and evening working on both projects. They still had not finished either one of them, which meant that they hadn't got the 5K or the 50K in the bank.
It's crazy.
Right? Why? They didn't want to let some people down. Okay, yeah. So this is what I mean. But they didn't even realize until we had that conversation. They didn't even realize how that pattern of wanting to please others and not let people down, and what will they think and all that. They didn't realize how that was driving their behavior, and how it cost them like 5 months on. They still hadn't realized either of those income generating projects. So it's I think there's no one thing that helps you to be more focused in your business. I think it's a combination of plan in a smart way. That means that's going to help you to be focused, and make sure you're planning stuff that is in flow for you, that you're working with what comes easily, what's fun for you to do. Use the tools like Focusmate, like accountability, whether it's a coach, whether it's accountability partners. Though I found it hard, to be honest, to have accountability partners that I wasn't paying. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a coach.
Yeah.
Just because a lot of the time when you have an accountability partner relationship, it's often with friends, or they become friends as part of the process. And somehow it just doesn't have the same impact. Or most people, they're too concerned about what the other person thinks to really call someone out, when they're not kind of actually doing what they said they were going to do. Or maybe they go the other way and they're too judgmental.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what your experiences with this have been. But yeah, what have I left out? What else have we talked about here? What's been most significant for each of you, actually? So Helen, what's been most significant for you that we talked about today?
Yeah, so just had a little look down my list, and the things that I had written down were the difference between how to be more focused in your business is a little bit around, especially for me, the sales function. So the visibility tasks, the tasks that are going to focus on getting you out there. How do you create impact every day? How do people see you? And then the non-visibility tasks, like more the planning. They take different energies. So we talked about that and the environments, and I think that's crucial. And I didn't know until I came out of paid work and into my own office here in my own business what that was for me. So it takes a little bit of time to start tuning into that. Definitely bringing the subconscious to the conscious level, absolutely key, because sometimes we do things and we don't set boundaries and we don't have the right mindset because we're just on autopilot for 95% of the time, aren't we? Just using that repeat thinking and having a look at that contact shift and the different energies that are needed for different tasks. For me, I quite like the idea that like you say, sometimes it's just conscious or subconscious, and sometimes it's not broken down enough and it's not clear, so I like those kind of 3 points. Why are we struggling here? Why are we not getting focused? Well, it's going to be one of them 3 things to get tuned into that, and then you'll start to get to know your patterns a little bit more, and what works for you. So yeah, that's those 3 things kind of stick in my mind that you've written down there that you said. So yeah, really good. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. What's been most significant for you, Andy?
I think to kind of sum up everything that everyone said, I think the biggest thing for me, something I think you touched on, Una, is that focus and self-discipline go hand in hand. It's to have the right focus, you've got to be disciplined yourself, but also look after yourself because you are the business in most cases. Even whether you're working for someone else or whether you're working for yourself, you are the business. So if the business is good, if you want a healthy business, you've got to make sure you're treating yourself in a healthy way as well.
Definitely, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And actually, I think a lot of the time, the things that people do when they're not looking after themselves actually aren't productive anyway, or are not effective. So the amount of times I've worked with people and they've been busy, but focused on the wrong things. So yeah, I think that makes a big difference. And I think for me, it's I think a lot is the mindset part of it, because what is interesting is that I've often helped people to be more in flow, but then mindset stuff kicks in and takes them out of flow. So the more that we can work on ourselves and really improve that, so that we don't have the nyeh going on, or we're not exhibiting those patterns around self-sabotage or poor boundaries, whatever it might be. I think that's actually probably more important than people think. I think a lot of the time when people think focus, they think time management, they think productivity tools. You know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of kind of gadgets and shiny new objects around being more focused that actually can be just a real distraction.
You said before as well, Una, you said you said then about working on yourself. And I think a lot of people go, I haven't got time to do all of that. I'm running a business here. But I think one thing that you said really resonated with me before is that it's about breaking it up into more digestible pieces. That whole looking after yourself. It could be that if you're working 12-hour days, could be, all right, baby steps. Step 1 is for first week, take a half-hour lunch break away from your desk. And it could be in week 2, that becomes a 45-minute lunch break and then an hour lunch break. And then in the afternoon, maybe take a break to go for a walk or go to the gym, or, it's about, like you said, it's about those baby steps and making it more digestible for yourself.
Definitely. And actually, you just made me think, here, oh no, not that one. Wrong Stephen Covey. I thought, where was it? It's on these shelves somewhere, or maybe we've lent it to somebody. But yeah, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is an amazing book. And in fact, that is the book. Have you got it there as well? Yeah, great. One of the things he talks about is sharpening the saw. That's one of the habits. And that's exactly what you're talking about there, Andy.
Yeah.
And I love the analogy because it makes it really clear to people. Because we can say, oh, you've got to look after yourself. And people go, oh, yeah, yeah. And then they don't do it. But when you imagine, you're walking along in the wood and you see, the lumber person and their, the tree cutter, and they're trying to cut down a tree, but the saw is blunt, right? So they're going and they're like, oh, like this, and you're like, well, why don't you sharpen the saw? Oh, I haven't got time.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what so many people are doing in their businesses, is they're saying, oh, I haven't got time to plan. Oh, I haven't got time to do some mindset work. I haven't got time to take breaks. But actually, you haven't got time not to do those things.
Yeah.
Because that is exactly like trying to cut down a tree with a blunt saw.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. I like that.
Well, I think that's a great note to finish on.
Brilliant.
So thank you. I've really enjoyed talking about this anyway.
Yeah.
So please let us know what you think. What's the bit that's had the most impact on you today? Pop that into the comments. We want to hear about that. Do feel free to connect with myself, Helen, or Andy, and reach out to us if you're interested in what we do or what we've said here today. I would like to thank Helen and Andy again for standing in.
Thank you.
You've done a fab job. Thank you.
Thanks for having us again. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's nice to have kind of fresh faces and things. I won't be here myself next week because I'm speaking and exhibiting an exhibition next week. So I'm down in Chester. So unfortunately, I won't be able to make it back in time. So somebody who's going to be standing in for me next week. We'll see who that is. But Stephen and Jess should be back here as well. So thank you very much. I'm sure we'll see you both again very soon, Andy and Helen.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you very much.
Do let us know what you thought. Bye for now.